Hey, YouTube, welcome to the Comic Book Community 411. And this week's special guest is List Eman. Eman, welcome to the show.
Brian, thank you so much for having me, man. I really, really appreciate this.
Yeah, no, great to talk with you. So before we get into the questions, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your channel?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I go by List Eman. You can go ahead and find me on YouTube under List Eman. On my channel, I just do new comic book day picks with guests. I do mail calls. I've done a new segment called Creators Mail Call, where I actually open up, mail calls with the creator of the covers that I would have. So I've had, Aaron Bartling, John Jay, Miranda Brothers on my channel. And then you can also find me on the C-List Villains podcast, where I do a show with Red, AJ, Luke, and it's just nothing but comic book shenanigans on that channel right there. And then keep an eye out on my channel. I'm going to be doing the E-Man show, which is going to be like a combination of everything that I do throughout the week: new comic book day picks, new comic book day hauls, and just whatever happens in the week in geek.
Okay, great. Yeah, links are down below. So if you're not familiar, please go sub them up. I'll have Instagram. The podcast link will be there as well. So you can check out all the different areas that you can find them on. But let's jump into the questions. So always start with the origin story. So how did you get into comic book collecting?
So I kind of got it. I kind of started late. So, like growing up in the 80s with my friends, I would see them collect like Transformers and G.I. Joe comic books. And that was the one that I really saw the most. But I was such a big fan of the TV shows that I was like, you know what? I don't want to, dive into two different worlds. Let me just stick with the cartoons. I'm more than happy with that. My friends in the neighborhood, we'd all, we were only a year apart. So they get G.I. Joes, I would get G.I. Joes. They get Transformers, I get Transformers. It was one of those things growing up. So it was really cool that we had a nice little, close knit, set of friends growing up. Um, it was like I really liked watching Batman, the 66 Batman with Adam
Oh, yeah.
West. I was like, dude, this is awesome. You see the Batmobile, that's the greatest thing in the world. I love it. The Spider-Man cartoons, things like that. Like I grew up really appreciating a lot of the Marvel and DC properties, but I didn't really get into the comic books because I was like, there's just too much lore. So when the 90s came around, and then Image came around and Spawn, Savage Dragon, and all of those properties, I was like, you know what, I can start from the beginning. Like I can jump into comic books and not worry about like the past. Like this is the beginning right here. So my comic book collecting started when Spawn 1 dropped. Like from there on, like moving forward, then I went back and got Youngblood and Wildcats, and I started collecting through
Oh,
the
okay.
90s, and I stuck with Image. I just liked the art. Art was so much better. I loved, just the vibrancy of the colors. It was really nice. And then, of course, as I got a little bit older, high school comes around, girls happen. You kind of have to drop
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not a nerd. I don't read comic books. Who does that? I miss you so much. you know? So, as time went on, in the early 2000s, I was, I'd still peek in like, hey, how's Spawn doing? Like, what's going on in the world of Spawn? I love what's going on at San Diego Comic Con. MCU starts happening. All the big movies start happening. I was always about the big superhero movies too. It's like, I know about them. I don't know the background, but I know about them. So then around 2013, 2014, coworker of mine, we started just shooting the shit. And then we both brought up Stephen Platt. He's like, hey, you know that name? I was like, well, I know that name. How do you know that name? We were like, oh, shit, you're a geek. Well, I'm a geek. Well, oh my gosh. Like, we found each other. Hey. So there was like this 4-month period where we were just buying stuff online and packages would come in into the job. And, and it was cool because we're like trying to get back into stories that we knew about. I was trying to dive back into Valiant and Image and just trying to get back into it. So, as time went on from 2013 to about 2019, I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted. I just would just step into the LCS. All right, this is catching my eye. This is catching my eye. Oh, I'm gonna stick with this story. Okay, this story's cool. I'm kind of falling off right here. And not until like around late 2019, early 2020, when AJ approached me and he was like, "Hey, man, I want to do a comic book podcast. Would you join?"
Okay. Okay.
And then that's when it just got a lot more serious for me. I started like picking up more regular stuff. It's like, you know what, I better do this Batman. If I want to pick up some big superheroes, let's just jump into a Batman. And I jumped in like at Batman like 86, just before Punchline was introduced. And from then on, like, just moving forward, I was just able to collect, and whatever caught my eye, any new number one that looked like a really cool story to begin with, I'm just gonna pick up, just see what happens, because you never know, right? So
Right.
that's kind of like how it went for me. So, and that's where I'm at right
Okay.
now. I'm just continuing on with what I like. I'm collecting about 40 books a month. It's a lot.
Yeah, that is.
So about 40 books a month, and I'll keep an eye out for a new number one. And if I don't like a current story, I'm just gonna have to drop it and say, hey, thanks so much for taking my money, and I'm gonna move on to something else.
Yeah. Spend it somewhere else.
Yeah, why not? Like for example, like I was telling the Miranda Brothers, where I was like, when We Live first dropped, I was going by like the comic shop, I was looking at the rack, and I was like, what, what's this? Like We Live, the Miranda Brothers, what? This must be exciting. This must be a big thing. The Miranda Brothers, it's like the Russo brothers. I'm gonna pick
Right,
this
right,
up
yeah.
just because it says the Miranda. No joke. That was the reason why I picked up We Live, because it said the Miranda Brothers. Like they were a big thing. I'm like, oh, what am I missing? Let me just get this book right here. And I fell in love with We Live. Little did I know the Miranda Brothers was just their name that they just slapped on. Like, let's see what happens. Crossing our fingers. you know. And then we
Yeah,
end
and
up being.
I missed the boat on We Live altogether. I heard so many good things, but never picked up any of the issues. And I read the was it last year's or 2 years ago free comic book day
Oh my god.
We
Yes.
Live, and I was hooked right away. And so then I went back to find the back issues, and now collecting the new series that's out now. So
We Live is like my favorite series right now. I think recently Justin asked me, "What's your favorite series?" And now, oh shoot, I don't know. Batman. I completely fumbled that one right there. But it's We Live. Like currently, like whatever We Live, like that's my favorite. And it's cool because it's not just that it's a story that I really fell in love with. It's a story that like I was able to begin at the beginning with. And on
right,
top of that, like us as the podcast, with the guys, like we've grown to be friends with the Miranda brothers. Like it feels good to say that we are friends, because I can like hit them up on Facebook and just be, hey man, have a great day. I hope you guys are doing an awesome. Oh man, they'll respond back. Yeah, no problem, man. Hey, look, we have a slot. Would you guys mind coming back on the show? And they're really cool about it. And it feels good knowing that we were able to, start a relationship with not just, writers and artists of a comic book, but like creators of a world that I fell in love with.
right,
It
right.
feels really good to be able to do that. So, like, yeah, I hold the Miranda brothers and their work very dear and close to my heart because of that too. Not just because like I said, because I fell in love with the story, but we've grown to be friends in a way. So it feels good.
Right.
It feels nice.
Yeah, no, I've seen them a few times now, interviewed, and they seem like really, just down to earth guys that are just, creating a story that they love and based on, people that are in their lives.
Yeah.
Some of the characters are based on, some of the kids and things that are around them. So which is really cool. So
Very reminiscent of like what Hayao Miyazaki does with his anime. Do you know who that is?
I do not.
Hayao Miyazaki is the main guy behind Studio Ghibli, which is the studio behind some of the huge anime movies that have come out of Japan, like Spirited Away,
Oh, okay. Okay. Sure.
things like that. Ponyo, and in his stories and his animes, a lot of the characters are from people that he's met in real life. Like a lot of them are
Right.
based off of relatives and friends as kids. So it's very similar. So I see the similarities with that too, and it's really cool.
Ah, cool. So how did you make the leap to YouTube, right? You get back into collecting, you're on the podcast, but then when did you say, all right, I'm going to start, making videos and throwing them up on YouTube?
So it started. Okay, so it did start with the podcast. We started recording the podcast, I want to say like 2019, July 2019, July 2020, one of the two. I completely forgot. And then someone made mention to Red, like, hey, look, you guys talk comic books, and we like how you talk. As a group, you sound to get great together. Why don't you guys do this on YouTube? Like, we didn't know how to do it. We're like, well, what's needed? Like, like I can do it, but how do we do it as a group and on the,
Right, right.
like, do we do Zoom? Do we, like, we didn't know about StreamYard just yet. So we were kind of like doing it, like I would do Zoom, and then I would create all these backgrounds. And I'm a tech guy myself. So I would watch a lot of the tech videos, tech reviews and how they do their shows, and really try to study a lot of the YouTube, editing and whatnot. And so, finally got it figured out. Like, okay, we'll do it this way. We'll overlay this, we'll do that and whatnot. And then we discovered StreamYard. But it all started because someone made mention to our group, like, hey, you guys should do this. And so as a group, we started doing it, and I was like, you know what? I have my own ideas. I have things that I want to say, I want to talk about. So let me create my own channel, but I'm not breaking up with the C-list villains.
Right.
What I'm doing is I'm an extension of, but this is my world. This is what I talk about, and I will always try to bring in the C-list villains podcast in one way or another in all of my shows and everything that I bring up, because that's where I started. That's the
Right.
main
Right.
stuff. So like the main reviews, the main interviews, things like that will go on that channel. But then I still have my own thing that I can do. So I broke off and did my own thing because I wanted to do my own thing. See, here's the thing, and I mentioned this before, but I haven't brought it up. I actually went to radio school. Like originally, I wanted to be on the radio, and I went to school for it. Went in super toxic environment. I was like, after like a few months of being in the radio, I'm like, oh no, this is not for me. So I jumped out. I was like, man, I got this radio degree. I gotta do something with it. And YouTube gave me the platform to be able to speak my mind and use my voice and good afternoon. So and then just have fun and be real creative with it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I know Rob Fatstacks too. He has a radio background, and he seems like a very natural, speaker, and as do you. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and I've heard that about the radio industry as a whole is kind of very kind of cutthroat, not a fun industry to be in. So
Very cutthroat is the word to it too, because it's like you have a certain slot, you have like the main guys there, and then you find out, so you need days off, so like someone else would step in, and a lot of the times they would think, oh, okay, you know what, you're just gonna come in and fill in the blank, just play the stuff. But there have been times where I've heard on the radio where like, man, this person's DJing so much better than the original guy, like what's going on here? And then like you would hear stories behind like, yeah, dude, so and so didn't like that, like they really hate that person, get them out because they're gonna take their slot. It's super super cutthroat. And I was like,
right.
I can't do that. I don't have it in my heart to be able to be like, you know what, I'm better than you, and I'm going to take your slot because I'm that kind of a barracuda and I will eat you up. I just, you have to have a certain mindset
Yeah,
to be able to be in there.
it sounds like a stressful existence.
Yeah,
So
very much so.
yeah. What about a comic book or a character that you would like to reboot or rewrite a story or?
Well, I'm not good at with writing. Certain, comic book player A, B, and C, they go off and they go into the sunset and beat up bad guys. I can't do that. So I'm not imaginative like that. Unfortunately, I wish I was. I wish I can be like, all right, page 1. This is how we're gonna start this origin story. But I think a lot about. The image books that I read, recently Cyberforce. It looks like it's starting to come back, Top Cow and Miko Suayan and Big Time Collectibles. They have this variant coming out. It felt good being able to see some of the old 90s heroes coming back. But here's the thing too, I early on into reading a lot of these stories, I realized that, they're just a rehash of New Mutants, X-Men, this and that. So I'm like, it would be cool to be able to see those old teams come back, but maybe rewritten in such a way that matters today. And it doesn't seem like it's taking away from, or it doesn't seem like it's still a knockoff off of a Marvel or or a DC team, try to give them their own personality. If anything, I would probably want to see Gen 13 come back. I would like to see like a strong writer and a strong artist, even if J. Scott Campbell comes back and starts drawing for it too, because that's how I was introduced to J. Scott Campbell, was through Gen 13 in the 90s through his image line. And I thought that story was really cool. Bunch of kids, they have superpowers, they just don't know what to do with it. And though it sounds familiar, I feel like it could be brought back in such a way that it has its own identity, still keep their powers, and not feel like a knockoff of what's going on out there right now. And I think a lot of the teenagers and the young people do need to be able to look up to a strong team that's also relatable, and I kind of like that idea. So I would probably say bring back Gen 13.
Definitely some, eye-catching covers from that series back in the day.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's questionable too. Like back then, you're like,
Yes.
ah, this is awesome, and then you get older, you're like, ah, I can't look at it. I can't look at it the same way. I'm just a creepy old man just looking at this. I can't do, can't
Well,
do
it's
it.
interesting too. I recently read the Moon Knight #1. The facsimile came out like a week or two ago, and read that, and it felt dated,
Uh huh.
right? Because it was done, so many years ago, and the original story was, it seemed very, compared to where we are today with art and writing,
Mm.
that book felt a little clunky reading it today. I'm sure if I read it when it originally came out, it probably would have been fine, but it definitely, the new Moon Knight series is obviously a lot different, but reading the the old version of it now was like, wow, this feels dated.
And that's one of the reasons why I really couldn't go back and read any of the older comic books from like the 80s and 70s, when I discovered them, because I would feel like they're dated. I've always been the type of person like, okay, what's next? All right, what's the next best art? Okay, what's the next best this? What's the next best, type of paper to print this on because this feels so nice. I've always been about like what's the next step. I've always thought about, looking forward, and rarely did I look back. And though I appreciate what was given to us, some of the stuff going back and reading is a little tough because it does feel, like you said, dated. Like, for example, like going back and reading for example, just pick any kind of run like in the 80s of Batman, and it would feel a little weird reading it now. However, reading year one Batman makes sense because you're going all the way back to the beginning, and then that way you're starting over, and that way you can see where it came from. So
Right.
it can feel dated, but it makes sense because it's year one, you know. But just picking like any kind of like the really good, storylines from the 80s or 70s, like it would feel weird reading it now because some of this, some of the verbiage may not make sense, or some of the plot points, or some of the things that happened in those comics happened then, and they're not, relevant now,
Right.
or it might be a little too cringy
Right.
now.
You're right.
But that was then. That's how it was then. So it's one of those things. If you know how to appreciate and just get that out of your head, they're great reads. I recognize it, but I'm always been like, okay, well, what's next? What's the
Right.
future?
Right. They're got kind of a time capsule, or a snapshot of the time, then in the 70s or 80s. But yeah, they don't translate well in the current environment, the current world.
Exactly. Again, I appreciate them. I'm not knocking them whatsoever. It's just not for me, I'm jealous of the people who can appreciate it, and just unfortunately it's just not my bag,
Right.
my cup of tea.
Now, what about biggest complaint or dislike of comic book collecting or of the community on YouTube? What's one thing that you don't really care for?
Um, what I don't care for now, this is just me, and when I go through YouTube, I'm like, you know what, sometimes I'll watch Mark from Legion of Comics, I'll watch Nick's, I'll watch our show, just kind of go back and just kind of watching some of our shows, and then sometimes I would. I know my group. I know my circle now. This is my circle of people, that I would follow and support. Let me go out. And what I do see is a lot of the spec reads, right? Oh, this week I'm not picking up, Catwoman so and so because of Harley and this, and Jen Bartel cover, and it's going for $125. I really don't. Surprisingly, I really don't care about the spec. I don't. It's cool if I can get a book and it comes up. The value go great, awesome. Like, I have such bad luck with spec. I have
Oh,
such
yeah.
bad luck with gambling. Like, I go to Vegas, I will easily lose $200, and there I'm
Oh,
like, you know what? This $200 I could have used towards like a nice fancy buffet. Like, gambling has always been my family's thing, and I see spec. And I see people buying stocks and crypto as a form of gambling, and I'm like, that's not for me. I don't have that bug. I don't
certainly
have
risk
that.
involved. Yeah.
There's a lot of risk involved. Exactly. Like, there have been times where I would pick up things on spec. Let's say, you know what? Let's see what happens. And I'll buy $150 book and now it's worth 20. I'm like, well, that sucked, you know? And I don't like that feeling of losing money. I know there's a lot of people like, oh, it's, it's the thrill of it. I'm like, look, I got kids. They
Yeah,
they,
right.
they require to be fed. I'm, by law, I've been told that I need to give them food, so I can't spend the food money on spec books. So,
Yeah,
so
the
for me,
thrill's not
this,
going to pay the bills.
yeah, exactly. So I really do, when I go in and I collect a book, I do collect it because I want to read it. Now, if there's a snazzy cover that comes with it, a cool little cover B or a foil that catches my eye and I just want to put it in my box of variants, I'll do it. Sometimes my LCS knows that, hey, look, this is a 1 in 10, this is a 1 in 25 of a book that you collect regularly. That's awesome. That's one thing I love about my LCS is sometimes they'll slip in a book and, one LCS up the road is already selling it at eBay prices and I'm getting it at cover.
Right, right.
Dude, that's so dope. Once in a while, I will throw some books up on my Instagram to, hey, look, I'm selling some books. Who wants, who wants them? And
Right.
great, I have gas money for the next 2 weeks. I'm not a flipper. I'm not a reseller. If I have something, you know what, I'm going to throw it up and see who bites. I'm fishing out there now, right? But collecting for me is revolved mainly around the story. What adventure am I getting myself into? Whose life do I care about in this story right here? And that's what I like about collecting. And then the second part is cool covers. Like, what cover does catch my eye that I'd like to put up like on a wall? Like, oh, this cover's cool. I have this whole long box of nothing but variants, and variants in some ratios. So it's like, okay, cool. But I don't care too much for the spec because then it just raises like the FOMO and then just the bad feelings and very little good feelings do you get out of living up to the spec because there's a whole lot of disappointment when it comes down to it. I would rather just read the book.
Yeah, no, you can drive yourself crazy chasing the different, spec books or, the different variant covers if they're not available at your LCS. But yeah, no, I kind of take the similar approach where, I collect what I like to read. And hey, if some of them go up in value, well, then that's just an extra, bonus.
Yeah.
But I do think, most of us do sell books. Our likes or dislikes could change, and
Yeah.
we may want to move on from a set of books, and it's a good way to unload them and then help fund the hobby or buy more books, right?
Yeah.
So
Or just it's just a good way to get some of these books into the hands of actual fans. Like I've AOK'd some books that were like, I could have probably sold them for $20 on eBay, but I've AOK'd them to people who I feel like I see that this is your thing. I have some extra Hulk this and Hulk that. Let me send them over to you because I see you're a Hulk fan. You know what? I'll okay. Don't even worry about it. It's probably worth $10, $15. I'm not even stressing over the money just because I would rather have a fan of that series enjoy that. Like some people have sent me like We Live stuff. Like, hey, dude, I know you're a We Live fan. I got a ding on this right here. I see no value in it, but dude, send it over to me. I don't mind. Like this We Live. Let's say you have like a metal cover and it's got a major ding on it and you got your money back and dude, I'll take it. I'm a We Live fan.
right.
I will hold on to it. I'm not trying to flip it. I'm trying to collect that. That's my thing right there. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, no,
Collect
and
what you
I've done that too, where I'd much rather send off books, like you said, in an ALK to somebody who collects or is going to appreciate that, than rather than going through the trouble of trying to flip it and make a couple dollars.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you see the enjoyment that somebody gets when they get something that they're really excited about. So
Yes, exactly. And that's actually the best part of it. Like, oh man, okay, I'm glad that you like it. It looks like it belongs in your hands. Like recently, I had a Matt Ritchie on my show. He's a cover artist. He's done some fantastic stamp covers for Department of Truth. I collected like the very first stamp cover that he did, but I never was able to go back and get the other two just for whatever reason. And then like looking on eBay, they're going for a pretty penny. I'm like,
sure,
you know what? I can't spend money on that, but awesome, right? I ended up winning like a little contest on one of his sites, and I was like, oh great, he's gonna send me some books. awesome. Came to find out that the 2 books that I ended up getting were those 2 stamp covers that I needed to complete my.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, this makes me happy because I was able to collect. I'm able to collect these now. These aren't getting flipped. These are not getting signed. These are for my collection. I'm glad that I don't have to spend $200 on the final 2 books, and it made me happy. And that on the show, he was like, yeah, see, this is what I needed to see. Like, it seems like this book went to the right person. I was like, hell yeah, I was super excited. And that's more important. The excitement, the happiness that something like that brings is way bigger than the monetary aspect of it, if you can even sell it, right? Because you can say that this book is worth $200, but are you going to get it, and are you going to get the $200 right away? It really depends on the market, and it's just, what, let me just put these in the box and just have fun with them.
Cool. What about, we're in con season now, a lot of cons happening. Do you have any plans to go to any cons or anything this year?
Yes. So I'm trying to go to San Francisco Fan Expo in November. There's gonna be, and I know that's so far away, but like San Diego Comic-Con, I can't do. I have this crazy schedule at work. Like there were small cons that happened during the year that I was able to take my daughter to, which was nice. But the big one for me this year is going to be San Francisco Fan Expo. Came to find out Miranda Brothers are going to be there. As you guys know,
nice.
I'm a big We Live fan. I'm like, told those guys, I was like, you guys are in time. I'm kidnapping you guys. We're going to go out and have a drink. I'm going to take you guys out to some of my favorite places, just having fun with them. Of course, I don't think they're going to have time to hang out with just fans, but, so I'm really looking forward to San Francisco Fan Expo. And I'm there, I told my girlfriend, I was like, I'm going to be there for 3 days, like, Friday night, Thursday, or 3 or 4 days, whatever it is. I told her, I was like, Friday night is going to be all recording. Saturday, I'll bring the family with me. Sundays, the cap off. And I'm going to make a video. Like I want to make a travel style video of the con, have some fun with it. Cause I like travel videos. I watch a lot of watch an insane amount of travel videos on my spare time. I'm like, I can make some of these videos, I'll watch some of these people. I'm like, you have 14,000 viewers on this video. You have the personality of a stump. Like, hold on, wait. If you can make a video like this, I can make a video like this, and I'll do it like out of a con. I'll probably make my head exploded because I'm like, like I know I have a slightly better personality than you. Like, how do you do this? So I'm like, you know what? Let me see what I can do, and then try to do it myself and just have fun with it. So yeah, the San Francisco Fan Expo is the one that I'm really, really looking forward to.
Well, and I think a con in general, right? You've got cosplay, you've got merchandise, comics, toys. There's a lot to see. So you put that up on video, and people are going to watch. So
a lot to cover. I mean, like I'm a big I collect comics, but if I can and if I have the money, like the 2 other things that I would collect are like Gundam models and more Transformers. Like I'm a big Transformer guy, and if I can collect more Transformers and more Gundams, like that would be, or like not just Gundams and Transformers, but like anything mech, like G-Salts, like combiners, like Voltron.
Right. I was gonna say,
Voltron, like things like that are huge to me. Like if I had the money to be able to collect this, man, I would be all over that. And then like at cons, I would focus in on things like that. Not just the comics, but the cosplayers and the toys. There's so much.
There's a lot of rabbit holes that you can go down.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
So my last question is usually, I give the guest an option to, if there's a particular question you'd like me to ask you. And I don't think anybody's taken me up on that. So what I do is I have a list of just random questions. And so I'll have the guest pick a number between 1 and 50. And wherever we land, that's the next question I'll ask.
All right. I am 44 this year. Let's go with number 44.
Okay. This is interesting question here. If you could eat only pizza or tacos, which would you choose?
Tacos.
Hands down. That was a quick answer.
Hands down, tacos. I am half Mexican. My family would be like, really? Pizza? Yeah. You're half Mexican. How dare you? And it's funny. I just said that I watch a lot of travel video. My girlfriend and I, we're... Okay, this is bad, and I know a lot of people know that I'm recovering from COVID right now, but we're planning a trip to Mexico. We're going to Mexico and we're supposed to go real soon. Crossing my fingers. We're supposed to go real soon. So hopefully that we can get over this COVID. But going back to Mexico is like, that's all you eat are tacos. You go to the
Oh yeah.
streets and there are tacos everywhere. And it's cool because it's not just carne asada. It's not just carnitas. It's not just pollo. You know, you have, salchichas. You have, cachete, ojo. You have all these different cuts of tacos. It's like one taco here is completely different from the taco stand right next to you.
Oh yeah.
So it's like pizza or tacos, dude. Tacos.
Well, my wife is from Southern California, so when I first met her and was visiting California, and we were in, she was in Southern California, but we went down to San Diego, and so the fish tacos and just my taco experience on the West Coast was a lot different than the East Coast.
See, and that's the thing. Like when it comes down to traveling, you definitely want to be able to eat what the locals eat, right? And it's something that it does interest me. Things like that where it's like I know the East Coast isn't known for their tacos, but I would still like to try like what their version of a taco is or a pizza is or what do they look at as sushi. Like I can
Right.
order, a California roll bento box here in California. I know exactly what I'm going to get, but am I going to get the same thing like in North Carolina? Is it going to be the
Right. Right.
same in New York, New York? I do recognize that it's completely different from one side to the other. What a loco moco is in Hawaii is completely different from here in the Bay Area is completely different from like Kansas City, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
the fun part. That's what makes traveling and eating so fun is that things that sound familiar can be completely different and just have fun with it.
Yeah, no, it's always good to, like you said, go to a new place and then experience it by, through the local food and yeah, no, that's definitely a good suggestion.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Always try the food. Always eat what the locals eat. But every time we go to Hawaii, it's like we don't go and eat like at the resorts. We literally find like holes in walls and be like, hey
Yeah.
auntie, hey uncle, like how's your loco moco here and how's like your fried chicken here? It's amazing. I just love traveling and eating. It's so fun.
So that was it. You survived. You made it through all the questions.
Yes. Thank you
So,
so much for having me on here, Brian. I
oh no,
really appreciate it, brother.
yeah, thanks for coming on. But what do we have? I know you mentioned a little bit about some of the things you're working on your channel, but what else do we have coming up? Anything else you want to highlight?
Yeah, so C-List Villains, make sure you guys follow us on the C-List Villains podcast on YouTube. Now we have changed our schedule so that we're only doing a Monday show. And honestly, the setup has changed a little bit where all four of us now have a segment. We each have a segment in the show before we end with the final segment that whatever AJ chooses. So moving forward, the C-List Villains, our format slightly changed. So make sure you guys follow us there. Keep an eye out on my channel. I'm recovering myself, but keep an eye out on my channel. I'm also changing it a little bit where I'm going to try to do every Wednesday. I'm going to do the Eman show where it's not just New Comic Book Day hauls, but it's going to be, I'm probably going to do mail calls. It's going to be news and just whatever topic I want to talk to you about that day for a good hour. Just come by and hang out. Keep an eye out. Make sure that you hit that notification bell so that way you guys get notified anytime I drop any one of those new videos.
Cool. Yeah, I just watched. I was watching your last Wednesday show with Manny Reads Comics, and that was really good. The conversation, discussion back and forth with Manny. So yeah, definitely, I enjoyed that format.
Thank you, and yeah, those top three new comic book day picks. It's fun to me because even though it's like, hey, choose three books, I'll choose three books, and then we'll talk about it. And if we have a book that we have in common, that's even better because then we have one book that we
Oh,
can
sure.
talk together and just end the show with, hey, you know what? And then I'm going to tell you guys, Saga, you got to pick up Saga because of this. And then we have fun with it. So the top three new comic book day picks are really fun. The mail calls are really fun. I don't have any mail calls or creator mail calls coming up, but keep an eye out because, anytime I can get a guest to be on the show with me while I open up their piece of work, it's just fun and awesome.
Cool. All right, we'll be on the lookout for it. So all the links will be down below. Definitely go check out Instagram, YouTube, and the podcast. And Eman, thanks again. Thanks for being on.
Thank you so much, Brian, man. This was
All
really
right,
fun. I really appreciate it, brother.
cool. Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching, and we will see you soon. Take care.